Hello and welcome everybody to the Debrief with Kendal Bailey. I will say it has been a very exciting year for me as I have been able to connect with some of the most incredible nurses across this country. I've been able to speak with nursing educators, leaders, entrepreneurs, and those that are really making a difference in both the nursing profession and in patient care. Now, it would be remiss of me not to end our first season of the Debrief, but showcase some of the incredible nurses I get to work with every single day. And these are powerhouse nurses who have taken on non-traditional roles, but have been able to translate their clinical skills to tech and healthcare education. So I am actually working with today, we have our first panel discussion for the Debrief. So for today's conversation, we're going to be connecting with Nora Carr, Dr. Sarah Friend, and Lauren Anderson. Thank you all for being here today and my incredible team that I get to work with. Thank you for joining us here on the Debrief. Now, as many of you are working or have seen or worked with these nurses, they come from all over the country with a vast array of skills. But my first question always is, where did your nursing career really start? So Nora, if you don't mind, I'd love to start with you. How did you enter the nursing profession?
Yeah, so I graduated with my first degree in sociology, and it was in 2009, so right when the economy crashed and there weren't a lot of jobs. I was working at an Ultimate Frisbee apparel company. I was just trying to do some soul searching, figure out what I wanted to do. I was talking with my mom, and she actually suggested nursing as a career. My grandma was a home health nurse in Oregon. I had no previous medical experience. And started looking into it and was like, wow, this seems like it could be a really good fit. I went and did some volunteering at a local hospital and just was like, yep, this is for me. So I decided to do my prereqs and yeah, that's it.
And you've had most of your clinical experience has been in critical care, is that correct?
Acute care and then med-surg acute care and critical care and surgical ICU.
Wonderful. I always say I always appreciate someone who had that great family involvement. As many of you listeners who have heard from me, I was supposed to go be a kindergarten teacher, and my mom looked at me one day and said, nope, you should go into nursing. And now here I am. And sometimes having that guidance from those people closest to you is always fantastic. So I'm glad that she transitioned you through that area and then where we meet you here today. Dr. Friend, how did you get into the nursing field?
Who's that? I would say mine was actually, I was always interested in medicine and I thought I might go down that route. And then a friend of mine was going to a nursing information session and I kind of thought, well, nursing sounds kind of interesting. So I tagged along to that. And during that orientation session, I had kind of a similar feeling of Nora where I felt like this resonates. I could see myself doing this and applied and got in and did all the program. I did a BSN at VCU and then they have a large teaching hospital there. And during my clinical rotations, I did a rotation on the burn ICU and I really loved it. And I kind of found my way there. And that's kind of where my passion for nursing started. And yeah, it's just changed a lot over the last decade for sure. But I have no regrets about going into it.
And you are a family nurse, you went through and got trained as a family nurse practitioner, correct?
Yes, correct. I did go
Wonderful.
back to school to do the DNP at University of Washington, which is actually how I ended up meeting Nora, was moving out to Seattle. And through Ultimate Frisbee. And yeah, so did the DNP and I started working in kind of an outpatient primary care setting. And then COVID happened and I actually kind of ended up working on clinical trial for vaccines. And that kind of was the first, I think, way of seeing that there was different ways of working in healthcare as a nurse practitioner or nurse that were not just bedside or in a clinic. And I really loved that. So it kind of opened my eyes to see all the different possibilities. And SimX came across my plate again because of Nora, and it just kind of all worked out. So I'm really excited about, the trajectory of nursing can just look really different for everybody.
Well, and I think we'll dig into that a little bit more because it is all of us are connected and have been through so many different pathways. I think even pathways I never anticipated when I first entered the nursing field. Lauren, for you all as well, you've had several roles across even the tech industry and healthcare education. But how did you enter nursing and start your career there?
Yeah. So when I was registering for my freshman year of classes at my university, really didn't kind of was rudderless, didn't have a super great direction on what I wanted to do. I'd always felt like science and healthcare was appealing to me, but I didn't quite know like what route I wanted to take. And I was chatting with a friend. She was telling me she was applying for the nursing program, and I started looking into it, and all I heard was that it was like so rigorous, so challenging, like impossible to get into. And I'm very driven by challenge in my life. And so I was like, you know what? I can do that. Like everyone says it's hard. It's the hardest program at this school. I'm gonna do it. And so it was more of just kind of like stubbornness on my part. Obviously something that I felt like naturally inclined to. But yeah, got into the program, went through my education. And it was, I think most people have a fairly tumultuous experience through their undergraduate experience with nursing care or nursing undergraduate education. So I really wasn't all that confident that when I graduated, I was really going to enjoy being a nurse. So I was fairly skeptical as I was like passing my boards and applying for different roles, kind of that like this really was the career for me. But I ended up working on an internal medicine floor at the University of Utah, and I just fell in love with my job. Like I remember being like one of those kind of annoying people that would like talk about their work and be like, I just love my job. It's so fun. Like all of my friends were super irritated because they all hated their jobs, and I absolutely loved my job. And I was like in the trenches of med surge. Everyone kind of bags on med surge, and it's the best. I absolutely loved it. So I feel like I had the most wonderful entry into my nursing career. So
I will say I appreciate from all three of you that all three of you speak about your passion and where you started. I think sometimes there's this context of how we may move in and out of the healthcare, the traditional healthcare positions, that it's because maybe you weren't satisfied or you didn't like it, or I love that. Even myself, I am a passionate nurse. I love being a NICU nurse. Lauren, I give you all the cred in the world. I say this over and over for everybody: burn nurses, critical care, med surge. I bow down to all of you. I like little people way more. But all of us are incredibly passionate about nursing, even though none of us really maintain a full-time position in what would be considered a traditional nursing role, like a bedside role. So how did you all get to that place though where you said, okay, yes, I love being a nurse, I love working bedside, I love this specialty, but I see myself or I see my skills going in another direction? Sarah, you talked earlier about how it was even maybe the connections across the members of this team. What was really that thrust for you to maybe look at an alternative role?
I had moved back from Washington State to Virginia, and I was looking at finding a new job as a nurse practitioner, and I was really struggling with feeling like something was going to be the right fit. And it just wasn't, I mean, I think everyone can speak to post-COVID of the kind of burnout and exhaustion that was going on. And I was feeling that very much so. And so I was this close to accepting a position, and Nora kind of sent me a message and said, hey, the sales team is looking for somebody with nursing background. I don't know if you're interested in this, but like maybe you should consider it. And it was perfect timing because I think I had like a week before I had to tell the other job that I was going to accept it. And so it kind of felt like this little bit of, I don't know, the universe telling me like to look at something else. And I actually worked with Nora, or I was kind of a volunteer for her VR project that she had during grad school. And I remember thinking like, this is amazing. Why didn't we have this during nursing school? It was about, I think it was therapeutic, like some meditative thing for nurses, like on staff breaks. And so just that context of like VR and nursing kind of set that off. And so I'd been watching what Nora had been doing here, and I was just jealous, honestly, to be like, what a cool career that you have now. This is so cool. And so when that came up, I just kind of leaped at it. It was a big leap of faith. But I loved teaching. I loved nursing education in general, and I loved innovation in tech. And so it just kind of felt like all the stars were aligning. Why not? So it just kind of happened. And I don't regret it. I'm really, really happy I did.
Well, and I think it's a very real conversation for many of us to also say, even though we love what we have done as clinicians, that there is a personal toll that takes. And obviously for many people, and I love that the conversation now in healthcare is about burnout and how do we build more resiliency, or how do we create healthcare clinicians that have some of those skill sets for the personal protection that comes along with a career field like this. And I will say, even in my own journey, burnout has been a very real place for me, but I love nursing and the fact that you can transition and move to other areas or roles, especially if those are some of the places you get to. And Nora, so you have your master's in human-centered design and engineering, which, by the way, I think might be the coolest master's title I have seen. And how did you get to like say, hey, I'm ready to even get a graduate degree outside of nursing into this other area? And then you're even pulling in Sarah into it too. But how did you get to even exploring even different academic programs outside of the nursing place?
Yeah, so when I had started nursing, I think in nursing school, I didn't really know where where I wanted to go within nursing, which was also something that drew me to nursing, right? Like I love the flexibility, the ability to kind of go to many different areas as a nurse. And so I decided to do acute care and then go to an ICU, because from there I was like, okay, I can decide what I want to do from this point. I'd been in the ICU for about 4 years, and I was thinking about either doing flight nursing or maybe becoming a nurse educator. And then, then my partner, he recommended that I look into this degree program. He had done a certificate in like UX design and was like, hey, I think you would actually really love like this area. I had no idea what it was. I had never heard of it before. I looked into this program at UW and was like, wow, this feels like me. It feels like a really good fit. And what I was really excited about was improving technology in healthcare, because I was so frustrated by just how long it took to do anything with the current technology that I was using as a clinician. And so I really wanted to get into this space to improve the experience for nurses as they were working with whatever technology they were working with. I pivoted to VR in the program and simulation, but yeah, that was the reason for going into it. And I will say I had a lot of imposter syndrome. Even looking into VR was something that was very different than a lot of my classmates. And I'm really glad that I stuck with it. It was my second career. So I really wanted to focus on something that I would be passionate about. And it's really amazing to be able to use my healthcare experience and still help clinicians from a different angle. So yeah, that's my journey.
I wish sometimes too in our undergraduate education that sometimes there was a greater conversation about all of the skills that you learn in nursing and even just interacting with diverse patient populations that really can translate a variety of ways. And really the skills that we're learning through conflict resolution and therapeutic relationships and clinical reasoning are skills that can easily push us over into other areas and be very successful, even though we get scoped in that place. I look at you, Lauren, and you've had incredible diversity and growth in the tech and health education side through SimX. What skills have you seen that have really translated for you in that conversation to your current roles? Have you seen those skill sets that you used, as a wonderful medical surgical nurse really aid you now in the role that you have as a production manager overseeing virtual reality simulations?
Yeah, the transition for me from, obviously fulfilling a healthcare role to more of a tech specific role, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little bumpy. But I do think exactly what you were saying. I think nurses really come to the table with such proficiency in communication skills, which I think are sometimes undervalued across industries, in that, like, in every role, you will be communicating, whether that's like person to person, virtual, or whether that's communicating like through written communication. And I think like that is such a strength that nurses bring into whatever industry that they enter, including staying in bedside roles. Like that is such a pillar of that role. And so I think that's helped me a lot, just like understanding how to communicate with lots of different types of individuals, lots of different types of roles. Nurses are often, spanning that entire breadth of healthcare professional, like interprofessional teams that are working to care for a patient. So there's lots of personalities to manage. It's a highly emotional environment. And so really just like such strong skills there. I also think nurses are incredible problem solvers. And so we are constantly just putting out fires all day, every day. So you really learn how to like triage what is important, what is not, what you need to attend to first, how you're going to solve that problem. And then I think lastly, nurses, I think, are also just like incredibly perceptive. And so being able to approach a situation, kind of analyze what's going on, take in the sights, sounds, smells of the situation, which I think we've all encountered, and be able to like make a decision and come up with a plan and then put that into action. And so I think those are all skills that, while like the actual day-to-day skills and responsibilities of my current role, really I had no training that was applicable from my nursing education. The general skills of communication, problem solving, and being able to just like analyze a situation and try and come up with a plan have really served me well, as I've kind of tried to navigate really unfamiliar territory.
I will say too, anybody listening, there is a big benefit sometimes to the decrease in smell exposure leaving. If anybody is interested, that is a nice positive translation there. So I appreciate the call out on, the reduction of some of our sensory input that comes from leaving the clinical bedside. But I like, as you talk about that, it is bumpy. And even Sarah, you brought up earlier, right? Like it is a leap of faith and trust. And I think that there's a lot that's really ingrained when you go to nursing school about like, here are your traditional scopes and roles and areas and what you'll do as a registered nurse. And I think for me too, when I got to join this team, I was scared about saying, okay, I'm going to join a startup. Like I have been in traditional healthcare leadership and I've been in academics. Those, a startup at a tech company is neither of those things. And that is an incredibly terrifying kind of realm to walk into. And will I be successful or translate those skills like you've talked about, Lauren? So, did either of you or any of you feel like you had those apprehensions just because of your peripheral thoughts of what tech meant or what maybe even a startup meant as you were looking to transition into this new company? Sarah, I know you were mentioning a little bit earlier, kind of having that apprehension. Was that the feelings that you had about a new organization or like the different thought, or was it purely kind of around that exposure?
I think I was lucky enough that I had a little context from Nora to kind of like know a tiny bit about what I was getting into. But if I hadn't had that, I think I would have been more apprehensive, maybe more nervous. I don't know if I would have done that because I would have felt like I don't fit in there or I can't do that, even though like Lauren said, all of those skills translate perfectly to what I'm doing here now. All of the communication and all of that. But I think just trusting that the skill set that I had could translate was enough for me to make that transition, even though I kind of thought, well, what's the worst case scenario? You can fail. And I felt like I'd done harder things. And I say this a lot at work. I'm like, nobody dies. Like it's all fine. We have better perspective. The emergencies that we have at work here pale in comparison to the things that we've encountered at the bedside and in our clinical roles. So I think the benefit of maybe having that imposter syndrome helped me a little bit because I was able to just dive in and not have a lot of expectations and just kind of see what happened versus, I don't know, when you are applying for a job like in a clinic, like all of the roles and things were very outlined. And when I started here, it was very much that startup mentality of like, you're going to wear a lot of hats, you're going to do a lot of things. But I loved that. I loved that about nursing too, where you're kind of, pivoting all day long. And so it was exciting to me to be joining something that was innovative and new and fresh. And like we could have massive impact on healthcare education, which trickles down to where we were. And so I felt like it was worth it, even though it was scary.
And I like that too when you talk about the imposter syndrome, because I'll be the first one anyone who listens to this podcast, I'll be the first one to say I have the worst imposter syndrome of all time, because it's very fearful to be like, not only am I concerned I won't be successful in this, have I been trained in this? I feel like there's a huge language difference of what I consider my roles to be in healthcare. What is the business translation to that, right? Sometimes we have that differentiator of, yes, oh, clinical reasoning or working with teams. Is that how we translate operations within like more of a business scope? I didn't even know the language. I feel like sometimes I get fearful that maybe I'm speaking to the wrong thing or I'm not understanding of the conversation just because there's so much to the language and the language I've learned in healthcare and what does that mean in the business, arena or in the tech arena. Nora, did you feel like maybe you got some of that translation with going and getting your graduate degree and looking at that? Or is that really what you've grown to within this new organization, just learning a different language as you've continued to grow your career?
Yeah, I'd say both. The degree that I got, the human-centered design and interaction and engineering, is really focused on either UX design, UX research, or kind of project management. And so a lot of the business side, the business terms are not really incorporated into that program. So that I think is the part that I've learned on the job a little bit more. But I was able to learn so much through that program, as far as just like terminology, approach. Like you do get some of that in the program. But I think it's been really fun to combine, like you mentioned, like healthcare is its own language and culture, combining that with the human-centered design and engineering approach, and then moving further with kind of business. And so being able to combine all those things has been really, really awesome. But I think I've definitely drawn from each of those spaces in the role I'm currently in.
So now with the roles that you're all in, and so we've got, territory manager, we got production manager, we have, a lead designer. If you look at your career now, what would you say is kind of your bucket filler? What is the thing that makes you excited and passionate about what you're doing in the context of the healthcare community? Like, for me, I love getting to go to conferences and meet with nurses and amazing nurses across the globe who are trying to make a difference every day with students, with their patients. And being a part of that means a lot to me. And I feel like I get to be part of that story with them. What do you all take away? Lauren, is there something that really, is that passion project for you as you see your work and its impact within the healthcare scope?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I feel very similar to you in that really what makes me so excited to be working here is and to fulfill my role is really what like our mission is with our product in providing, better high fidelity simulation to educators and to like change the way that we educate and all of the impact that stems from that. And so I get so excited, like working with clients and helping them discover kind of what direction they want to take with a custom project that they're working on. And I just get really excited to be working with like such innovators in that space who are so excited. They're like truly pioneering these efforts at their own institution. And there's such a small percentage of people that are doing this type of work. And it's just so exciting to get to like work with them and interface with them and learn from them. And really feel just empowered by like how influential the work that we're doing can and will be. And so, yeah, I would say that like just really gets me really excited.
How
Yeah.
about you, Sarah? What is that passion that you see in that translation for healthcare for you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Lauren says resonates with me. I think the excitement that you feel at the conferences and the stories that you hear about, like when something clicked, someone ran through a scenario and they saw something, and then the next day they went to work and they saw that thing and they felt prepared for it. Like that's very rewarding. And I think we get that when we're bedside teaching because nurses are educators. And I think we're also inherently innovators. And so I feel like it kind of pulls those pieces together. And so I feel like it feel like it fills the cup of me when I was a student and the moments where I was feeling, for lack of a better word, tortured or just in distress. And like you're learning in those moments and you don't really get the chance to repeat it and, have a do-over. And we give people something that makes it really easy to repeat those mistakes or learn from those mistakes safely. And I think we've all had instances of being traumatized or had poor experiences during simulation. And so I feel really fulfilled that we are nurturing our students and our staff with something that's going to give them training, that's going to provide them the tools to make better clinical decisions and communicate better, but also is exciting and engaging. Like it's a fun way of learning. So to me, I think that fills my cup because I could educate on an individual basis, but this is just such a high level where we get to see that impact. And I just love that.
Well, and I don't know about how, as you were talking, Sarah, I immediately thought about those moments where I felt paralyzed as a clinician because I didn't know what to do, right? Like I can think back to maybe the codes that I was a part of that were not very successful or didn't have great outcomes. And I can think of those first times that I had to do some high acuity procedures and feeling like I wasn't prepared to do those. And I never, of course, wanted to impact a patient. That, obviously was a very terrifying perspective, I think, for all of us as we enter nursing and ensuring that we don't want to do any harm to a patient. And what I think is interesting is that it sounds like, and many of us have this piece where what we are doing is because we also don't want people to feel like we felt. We want to make that jump so that way nobody else should hopefully sit in that seat and feel like, patient is going to potentially be harmed because we wanted to have better trainer, or we wanted to have better support, or I wanted to have more skill sets working within a team. And so it is interesting how you can even take your personal career and translate that to positive for the future generation of nurses coming down the line. Nora, you brought up your concern and frustration with the technology that you were encountering every day. Do you feel like with your role, you are designing new tech that's going to help the healthcare community?
Oh yeah, 100%. There are so many different ways that we can improve healthcare technology, but I think one thing that I was really excited about with VR is just that there's no other way that you can simulate what you can simulate in VR. I think, or if you attempt to, it's just really expensive. There's a lot of logistics. So yeah, I think one thing that I think is really great about what I've seen and how people have been using our product is just being able to replicate those situations that you would never get in clinical and kind of hope to. In so many of my clinical experiences in nursing school, we just didn't really get to see anything. Sometimes we were in the break room for most of the shift. It really just depends on kind of how that day went. And so being able to get into some of those more emergent situations and practice them over and over so it becomes second nature and you can reduce the cognitive load that exists for brand new nurses, just that is incredible. And I think it's also really fun. I really like gaming. I love playing a lot of different video games. And I think I was really excited about just having a fun new technology in healthcare that felt very immersive, felt really realistic. I didn't have to pretend like I was talking to a person in front of me, when I was doing education with mannequins. It just felt like I had to pretend a lot, and it never really felt real. It never felt like the stakes were as high as they were when I was at the bedside. And VR was really the first place where I felt that. And so that just kind of flipped a switch for me. And I'm just so excited that I can be a part of this and, hopefully bring some more excitement to the experience of students who are running through simulations.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point of there is a way to showcase different professions and passions that can get to better healthcare outcomes without, what we consider that traditional safety net of positions within the healthcare scope. So if for any nursing student or soon to be nurse or current nurse who might be listening to this, what would each one of you tell them if they were interested, or maybe they were at that place where they wanted to make a change, for their own emotional state, or they weren't finding that daily passion anymore? What would be your piece of advice to help somebody make the leap or the jump, or even start to investigate what, is often considered a non-traditional nursing role for each one of us? What would that be, that piece of advice?
So I would say my experience into like taking that leap of faith was very similar to the leap of faith I think we've all taken when transitioning to bedside practice, in that when you're in nursing school, you like have been bombarded with all of this information. You've been drinking from a fire hose, like really trying to just absorb all of this info. And then you're expected to go be like fully responsible for lives. It's very high stakes, I think, as Nora was mentioning. And I remember like right before I graduated, I had been feeling like a significant amount of anxiety about like my ability to competently take care of other people and take care of patients. And I remember like finally having this realization that like I am not confident in my like in the fact that I know everything, but I'm confident in my ability to learn. And I think that was just like such a key like piece of realization for me to take with me into my practice and then has really been something I've taken with me through my whole life and that I might not like have all of the knowledge now and I might not be confident in the knowledge and skills that I have at this very moment, but I am so confident in my ability to learn and to grow and to gain that knowledge and gain those skill sets. And I think as long as you have that, then you can really like tackle pretty much like any new experience that comes your way. And that really was something that I held on to as I transitioned into this very unfamiliar role where I felt very not qualified, very not confident, and I felt like I wasn't really bringing all of that much to the table. But I was bringing like my work ethic and the skills that I had from nursing and my ability to learn and adapt and grow.
I don't know about you guys, gave me chills.
Mhm.
Just thinking about that. And thinking about just being open to new. And that's scary and terrifying, and change is a very uncomfortable feeling, especially if you have concerns about performance. But how do we just maintain that perspective that if you made it through nursing school and you learned all the things that you did there, really sky is the limit as long as you have that open attitude and that perspective on what you're doing. Sarah, Nora, have you found kind of that same translation, just being open to exploring and finding new information has been part of your secret sauce and how you've been translating this new area?
One of the biggest things that helped me as I was kind of going through this journey of transitioning from nursing to something else to where I am now is really just talking to people and being open and honest about how I was feeling. Trying to just anyone who was doing something that was remotely near what I thought was interesting or maybe wanted to do, I would just talk to them. Even just reaching out to people on LinkedIn, going to different meetups. And that really helped me figure out, what I wanted to do, what options are out there. I think in nursing school, at least in my experience, I was not exposed to very many options as far as what you can do as a nurse, right? It's very much like, here are the things that you can do. And we've kind of talked about this. And so just having those conversations, maybe someone will give you a tip about something else you've never thought about before. And then yeah, being really open and honest with the imposter syndrome I feel, the challenges of being a nurse. I found that the more that I share with others how I'm feeling, the more that I, realize that I'm not alone and that those feelings are not my own. They're very much shared experiences. And I think doing that also helps people feel more comfortable continuing to talk about how they're feeling. So for me, I'd say that those are the things that really helped. And I was able to learn about a lot of just really cool things that people are doing in nursing and adjacent to healthcare and education.
That authenticity, right? It's sometimes so hard for us just to, even in healthcare, just to say this is where I'm at and this is where we're growing in nursing. And it may not be this perfect place, but at least let's have the open conversation about it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the smells, as Lauren brought up earlier. Like, how do we get to this place where we're just having the dialogue so it's okay? And being okay to come to a new place and try something different because that might be the right path for you. And there isn't a wrong path. I don't know. And Sarah, I'd love to have your perspective is sometimes there's this perception of what the right path is and what the wrong path is for what we're doing. And have you navigated any of those perceptions on what might be right or wrong in what you've been doing in your career? How do you kind of tame those demons or those internal thoughts?
I think when I first started here, I had not only the imposter syndrome, but I also had a lot of guilt for leaving clinical work and for feeling like I don't want to say sold out, but like that I wasn't doing something as impactful or meaningful. And like it's like not as important work. And I felt like I was a traitor to my profession in a way. Like I'm not bedside, I'm not taking care of patients. Like what do I even matter anymore? And I have a ton of friends in healthcare and they were all like, get out and don't turn around and don't look back. And what you're doing is cool and impactful. And I had a lot of people really cheering me on and people who believed that this was a good transition. And so I needed to hear that because I felt so bad about it. And now, kind of on the other side of it, I feel like we do have such a massive impact on education, and that does have a way of working its way down to the individual level. And I loved the one-on-one teaching, or teaching in a graduate program, and I loved bedside teaching for patients. But to have that high level impact is really difficult. And so I kind of had to reframe how I saw myself and think of it as, okay, you're having impact in a different way. And that helped with the imposter syndrome and that helped with the feeling of guilt. But it took me a while. I talked to Nora about this. I talked to Lauren about this. I talked to you about it. And I think we've all felt maybe a little bit of that twinge of like, did I make the right decision at some point? But I absolutely know that all of the things that I did in my nursing career have helped me to be where I am today. And I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without all of that experience. So I kind of have to block out some of that noise or that chatter in my own brain, to remind myself that what we're doing is really meaningful and has massive impact. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't look like what you thought it should or would, because you might find something better that's more rewarding or opens up a different pathway. I didn't think a year ago I'd be presenting at an international nursing conference with you all, and doing this podcast. I mean, so I think if you open yourself up to things and you can let that fear kind of go a little bit, it's really rewarding. So no regrets.
Well, right, that guilt of I'm not on the battleground, right? That traditional
Trenches.
face-to-face, the trenches of health. Isn't it terrible that we refer to nursing as like, I'm in the trenches? Right. Can we come up with some better positive terms for what we're doing, which is incredible work with patients all over the world. But I just want to say to anybody who's listening there, I just want to, grow off the sentiments from this team. What's right for you is right for you. And I think as a nursing community, if we can stand up and promote and challenge and push each other to be the best version of our nursing selves, the best part about this profession is that the impact comes from a multitude of lenses. And every day, hopefully, I hope everybody who listens to this podcast can wake up and feel like I get to feel with these incredible nurses working alongside me each and every day, and the nurses I've gotten to meet through my experiences of I enjoy what I do, I love what I do, I find impact and meaning in the work that I do. And I will say from this team, we have it, we love it, we get to enjoy nursing, and I hope that for everybody who's listening out there. What I will say, and I'm going to speak for the other nurses on this team, and hopefully they'll agree with me, for anybody who is out there and you are interested in a non-traditional or slightly alternative or tech or healthcare education role, I think all four of us would be happy to discuss and be open. I think, Nora, you brought up a beautiful context, starting the conversation, being open to the discussion, exploring new opportunities will only expand the nursing profession, right? Where we all are, the skills we have will only grow what we have and put us into new avenues. And help us grow what we can provide for patient care. So for anybody listening, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us and any of the other healthcare members across the SimX team. But I know we strongly believe in nurses, and we are the nurses who hopefully will make a difference in immersive healthcare education. Kind of last little sentiments. If you could see where nursing tech or healthcare education is going to go, what do you think is really going to be sky's the limit for us? Where do you want to see the next steps?
I don't want to see smell integrated into VR. I'll say that. What I don't want. No, I don't
Who
want
knew that smell was going to become the biggest, one of the major themes of the podcast conversation. No smell-o-vision for us when it comes to this.
Oh.
I just hope we have more meaningful education. I hope for anybody that we all have more meaningful education and that we love what we're doing. Any other sentiments for either Lauren or Nora?
I would say I just hope that we get to a place where our learners are confident, they feel prepared, and that, as Sarah was saying, like I think all of us have probably had those experiences where things didn't really go the way that we wanted them to go. And that's really easy to like blame yourself for, lack of action, lack of knowledge, lack of training. Um, and I really love us to get to a place where we're incorporating such a variety of simulation tools, of education tools that are all coming together to comprehensively produce like the most prepared nurses that there have ever been. And I think it's going to take a lot of different tools to get there. I think I'm obviously very confident in the one that like this group is working towards, but I think it's going to take a proverbial village to prepare future healthcare providers and future nurses to, you know, provide that care to an ever increasingly complex patient demographic. And so I'm just really excited to see like how all of that starts to meld together.
And finally, Nora, how do you feel like we're going to grow in this healthcare industry? What do you see as the biggest impact moving forward, or where do you want to see us grow for this technology?
I'm just really excited about all the new advancements and kind of these adjacent technologies that are being integrated into the like highly immersive simulation space. And so I'm really excited to see how this continue to evolve, how we integrate those into what we're doing. The advancements are just happening so fast now that it's really fun to figure out how to adapt, how to integrate. And I think it's just simulation is just going to get more and more realistic. And just to speak to what Lauren and Sarah said, I think just the more we can set up learners and people to really experience and get those reps in a realistic environment as much as possible before they encounter it in real life is just going to be so incredibly helpful. So I'm just excited to continue to move forward and see how all these technologies get integrated together and help be a part of that.
Well, again, for those who are listening, I hope you can see I get to have an incredible team that I get to work with every single day, mind melding, growing, and moving technology and healthcare education forward. So thank you all for having this great discussion with me today. I, selfishly love all of our day-to-day conversations, but I do think there was some wonderful context for any of you who are listening, who are looking at some alternative roles for your nursing career and where you can really grow. But thank you to everybody who has listened to season 1 of the Debrief. This has definitely been a journey for me, a new one, and even the members of this team are smiling because they're aware of what it has meant for my personal growth, but also my passion in healthcare education. So please like, share, love, leave comments, and I hope everybody can walk away today with a little bit more spark for what we do as nurses each and every day. So wishing you all a wonderful day. Thank you for everything that you do, and let's keep the nursing profession moving forward.